Yaffee program on WVNN.
So one of the things that I asked several times this year, and even last year, in the wake of President Trump winning in 2024, I kept asking, have Democrats learned their lesson? Will Democrats learn their lesson? And the reason I constantly ask that or bring it up is because I believe President Trump, one of the main reasons he won, was a rejection of the radical left. I don't necessarily think it was a clamoring for Trump. Now, in the Republican Party, it was in the primary. But in terms of the country, I really do believe it was a rejection, not just of Biden, but of the radical left, especially when it came to a lot of the culture war issues. That it's just, that stuff was just rejected by the majority of the American people. So have the Democrats learned their lesson? Well, I think the answer is a little mixed. Yes and no. What we're seeing, and I told you this was going to happen, but what we're seeing is the Democratic left, the Democratic socialists, in some ways they have gotten even more radical. But in other ways, maybe they have learned their lesson because they are shifting away from the cultural Marxism. For now, don't worry, they'll get back to that. And they're shifting towards the economic Marxism again. They're going back to affordability because that's an issue. Now, you can argue that it's worked. Look at Mamdani, but we did have an election yesterday where apparently it didn't work. But it could be, now that I'm thinking about it, that the Wisconsin candidate lost because she focused, at least in her past, on the cultural Marxism, which has been rejected. But it's going to be up to conservatives and Republicans now to fight against the narrative of economic Marxism. And unfortunately, you have the radical left doing that, but you have the radical right also. You know, it reminds me of Europe. Before World War II, you had the communists facing the fascists. Well, that's just two sides of socialism facing each other when the answer is free markets and individual liberty. So we'll talk more about this in a moment in the wake of some of the elections yesterday. You are listening to the Yaffee program. This is the show where you can count on the latest news, the important guests, and the best analysis, all for your morning commute here on Newstalk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. Also coming up the show, we'll talk about that a little bit later on at the bottom of the hour. There's an expert with the Heritage Foundation who's going to come on, talk about the problems when it comes to socialism and why we need to promote free markets. Before that, we'll have the Alabama bullet points. And yes, I have the details on the Alabama elections. We had the special primary yesterday. I wrote about it at yellowhammernews.com. Nothing really surprising there. Brett Marcus won. Jerry Carl won. Amy Aiken won. I mean, there was really Gary Palmer won. He was on the show yesterday. Nothing too surprising. We didn't have the same sort of narrative fighting against socialism that they say did in Wisconsin. But I will have the details of all that in the Alabama bullet points. We will talk about the latest in Iran as well. In the next hour, I got to bring up flock cameras again because that keeps coming up. I just mentioned Brett Marcus. I wrote about his take on flock cameras. We have many conservatives coming out against flock cameras in Alabama. Ernie Yarbrough, he's a state representative, great guy, great conservative. He's very much against them. So he's going to come on the show tomorrow and try to convince me why they're so terrible. But you also have the company kind of fighting back against the narrative, so we'll discuss that. You also have Doug Jones. He's out there, once again, railing against school choice. I'll end the show with the Yaffee program Rewind. We always take your text messages on the Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866, 866-494-WVNN. We have What's Trending in the next hour. Walker is here producing. I mean, she's going to do What's Trending later on. Walker, how are you this morning?
I'm doing well. I have made my morning more interesting by trying a new soda that I had never seen before.
What's it called?
It's a brand called Crumb Kake or something like that. And
I have no idea.
It is
what you're talking
butter
about.
pecan cream soda.
Is it good?
I like it.
Do you usually like cream soda?
I do. Although I don't think I would know it was pecan I
Oh,
would probably assume it's just like a caramel.
okay. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of cream soda in general. I am a huge fan of soda, though. Too much of a fan of soda, in fact. I drink way too much of it. It is definitely a vice. So
What's
I'm
your
glad.
go-to?
Oh, I'm boring. I like Pepsi or Coke.
Okay. Well, I mean, I typically go for Coke Zero.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I've been drinking Zevia. So Zevia is soda that is sweetened with stevia. When I
Yeah.
was on my diet a couple years ago, we were allowed to use stevia. So I started getting into Zevia. It's not as good as like a Pepsi, but it's decent. It doesn't have the sugar. So that's about it. If anyone wants to tell me what their go-to for soda is, you can tell me if you want on the Yaffee text line 866-494-9866. So I'll give you an update here on the elections. Read this from the Hill. The big one really today is that Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley emerged the victor in the hard-fought Democratic primary for Wisconsin governor. That's against Democratic Socialist State Representative Francesca Hong early Wednesday, giving the Democratic establishment a much-needed boost in light of recent progressive wins. Now, it's interesting. Some of the polls had her up by a lot. I mean, by double digits. But then he was able to win. Most importantly, Crowley's win offers center-left and more mainstream Democrats their first major win in weeks after several of their preferred picks lost in high-profile races like Michigan Senate Democratic primary. Still the mixed bag of primary results on Tuesday. And more broadly, this cycle shows that questions over the party are nowhere near settled. Yet progressive Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan defeated more center-left Representative Amy Craig in Minnesota. You also have Connecticut, one of the Democrat socialists win. We talked about Michigan last week. So when it comes to the future of the Democrat Party, there is an effort to switch because the one lesson that Democrats believed they learned from the last election is don't focus on cultural Marxism as much as economic Marxism. And one person who's trying to lead that transition, believe it or not, because she wants to run for president, is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC-AC. And she was on, I played some cuts during the Sunday News Show's recap, of course. But she was on with Jonathan Karl, and this specific clip of her really went viral for one reason, talking about woke. And I guess there's going to be a sequel to woke, is what she's saying. Go on and play the AOC cut for me, Walker.
She's moved away from it. And I have a local city councilman that has this saying, woke one was crazy.
Woke one was crazy. Okay, that's interesting.
And I think that what's important is that we have to assess what
was it? I mean, did the movement go too far with some of those positions? I mean, you briefly supported the idea of defunding the police.
Well, I think that during this time and especially during COVID, there was a huge opening of the Overton window. We were shut down. There was some of the highest unemployment rates that we have seen because of those shutdowns. Yeah. And I think that the doors were really open in trying to entertain any and every policy that was going to get us to a better place. And I actually think that the discussions that were had in that time were quite fruitful. I think that when we talk about crime today, it's fundamentally different than the way that we talked about crime in bringing crime down, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we all share in the goals of having as low a crime rate as possible. I think that, during lockdown, of course, rhetoric in that time is not rhetoric that we would use today. And I'm grateful that these candidates have the opportunity to present who they are to their electorate and what they're campaigning on in this moment.
All right, so woke one was crazy. I guess that implies we're in woke two. And it seems that woke two is going to be socialism. So woke part two, communism and socialism coming to America. Great. Sounds like a lovely sequel. Now, Scott Jennings, who I call the voice of reason of CNN, I'm the voice of reason of Alabama, as you know, but he's the voice of reason of CNN. He talked about this. Go and play the Scott Jennings cut.
So I noted AOC's comment this weekend, woke one was crazy. Let me introduce you to woke two, electric boogaloo. This is the craziest sequel in the history of politics. If you think what they were selling back in 2020. Abolish police or defund the police was crazy. Now it's abolish police, abolish prisons, abolish border, abolish the U.S. Senate, which really means abolish the U.S. Constitution. And it gets even crazier. Abolish Thanksgiving, because fundamentally they hate what the United States of America stands for. You cannot have a conversation about affordability with voters when you're out there saying, you know, this country really is rotten at its core and it needs to be ripped out root and branch, which is exactly what these democratic socialists are doing. You can make all the happy, smiley videos you want, but until you solve the crazy problem of all of these supposed hot takes, how do you ever break through to average voters who are just looking for something normal? And the Democrats are saying, best we can do, cancel Thanksgiving. What do you say?
That sounds a lot.
So I love his take. Here's the problem, though. Where are conservatives on this? Where are Republicans on this? Because there is one thing that the Democratic Socialists understand, that people do want change. They believe things are not, the status quo isn't really working. We saw it with inflation. They understand there's a problem, and they want bold changes to address those issues. So the problem with Democratic Socialists isn't the fact that they want bold change, it's that they want the wrong bold change. Put it that way. And this is actually an opportunity then, because we need bold change, but just in the other direction. Now, I want to read some of this from the editors of the National Review because they put it pretty well here. They said, when someone in your life has trouble paying his bills, he may profit from advice about hard work and thrift. Maybe he should learn his way around the kitchen. But mistakes on his part do not erase valid complaints about an economy and a government that make paying those bills harder. Continues on. It says, conservatives and libertarians, more than anyone else, should understand all the ways modern government makes it harder to make ends meet. They should share the express of voters' anger and try to direct it toward constructive channels rather than dead ends of big government liberalism or worse, democratic socialism. If stickier prices are high, that is in part because the Federal Reserve has expanded the money supply too much during the last 6 years. The high cost of housing, which I've talked about a lot, it says here, the high cost of housing, especially in economically booming regions of the country, is a significant challenge for young people starting their working lives and thinking about starting families. The chief culprit is overregulation via zoning, building codes, and rent controls, especially in deep blue jurisdictions. Conservatives should call attention to that overregulation and, where appropriate, and sometimes in coalition with non-conservatives who see the potential of markets to address this problem. The expense of health insurance eats into paychecks. Conservatives should advocate lifting regulatory barriers to the sale of renewable insurance policies and protect owners from the risk of high medical costs. It says many Republicans will unfortunately balk at breaking with Trump on trade, but they ought at least to refrain from dismissing voters' unhappiness with prices as mere Democratic talking points or attributing it to their being spoiled kids, unless that is they want the voters to conclude that keeping Republicans in office is unaffordable too. So we're going to talk more about this. It's not enough to fight against the left. You have to fight for something. We do need bold change, just bold change in the other direction. Are Republicans willing to do that? So far, I haven't seen enough of it, to be honest with you. If you want to weigh in, you can. We have the Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866. Coming up next, we'll have the Alabama Bullet Points. You're listening to the Yaffee program. Stay with us.
Yaffee program.
Welcome back to the Yaffee program. We're here on News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. And if you miss any of the show live, well, the podcast will be up on the website at WVNN.com. Right now, we got some election results to get to, so let's do it. We have those Alabama bullet points.
Alabama Bullet Points. Today's headlines from around the Yellowhammer State.
Sponsored by Larry's Pistol and Pawn. Go to the Madison location off Greenbrier Exit 3 by the Big Rusty Water Tower. Number 4 today, Tommy Tuberville and Katie Britt are backing a border bill targeting child trafficking and asylum fraud. So Tuberville and Britt of Alabama are co-sponsoring the Stopping Border Surges Act. It was originally introduced by Senator Mike Lee out of Utah, which aims to curb child trafficking and asylum fraud by reforming how migrant families and unaccompanied minors are handled after crossing the border. The bill would allow children arriving with a parent to remain detained together during immigration proceedings, prohibit releasing minors to anyone other than a lawfully present parent or guardian. It would broaden rules for returning unaccompanied minors and impose stricter asylum requirements such as shorter filing deadlines, safe third country provisions, and tougher fraud penalties. Supporters, including Tuberville and Britt, argue these changes would close loopholes, which they're right. All right, number 3 today, State Representative Rhett Marcus out of Enterprise, who is now a congressional nominee for the Republican Party in the 2nd District. I'll talk more about the results in a moment. But he supports allowing new data centers in the state as a local free market decision rather than imposing state or federal moratoriums. Now, this aligns with President Trump and Senator Tommy Tuberville. He notes that while some cities have banned them, many others will welcome the facilities for the substantial property tax revenue they generate, and argues the U.S. must stay ahead of China in the AI technology race. Now, Marcus also expressed privacy concerns about flock cameras. We'll talk about that later. But on data centers, he said, well, I believe that President Trump is right. We have got to stay in front of the Chi-Coms and the technology war. And it is a technology war, but we also have to be respectful for the people who don't want the data centers in their counties and in their municipalities. Number 2 today, former U.S. Senator Doug Jones says he wants to stop the Choose Act in its tracks. That's right, he's now the Democratic nominee for Alabama governor, has reiterated his opposition to the state's Choose Act school choice program, saying he wants at minimum to stop it in its tracks. By refusing to lift enrollment caps, blocking new participants, and either phasing out or adjusting it. Now, under the program right now, which is fully funded for the next school year and has already approved more than 34,000 students, eligible private school pupils can receive $7,000 in education savings accounts, while homeschoolers get $2,000. Jones calls the law ill-conceived, objects to taxpayer dollars going to private schools that he says lack accountability, and argues that many recipients were already enrolled in private schools before the program began, effectively creating a handout. He prefers directing education spending to public schools, because of course he does. Number 1 today, special primary results. Yes, and you can find the breakdown at yellowhammernews.com. But Alabama GOP sets congressional nominees under the redrawn map. So as you know, Alabama held a special primary on Tuesday in congressional districts 1, 2, 6, and 7. This is after the U.S. Supreme Court allowed the state to use its 2023 legislatively drawn map, replacing the court-imposed lines from the 2024 elections. So former Representative Jerry Carl won the GOP nomination in District 1 with nearly 75% of the vote. Will face Democrat Clyde Jones. State Representative Rhett Marcus secured the Republican nod in District 2 with 50% of the vote. Representative Gary Palmer easily won renomination in District 6 with 87%. He'll face Democrat Maurice Mercer. And educator Amy Aiken took the GOP nomination in District 7 with over 73% to face incumbent Democrat Terry Sewell in November. So there you go. We'll see. Those are the Republicans. We'll see if they all can win in November against the Democrats. This part of the program brought to you by Larry's Pistol and Pawn. Go to Larry's Pistol and Pawn today. 2 locations, one in Madison off Greenbrier Exit 3. It's next to the big rusty water tower. It's an 18,000 square foot facility. Really is the best place in town to buy guns, ammo, and jewelry. Both of those things all in one place for great prices, great customer service. There is another location in Huntsville off North Memorial Parkway. And you can find even more deals on the website. Go to pistolandpawn.com, pistolandpawn.com. You can, by the way, if you're at the Madison location, go to the back of the store. You can see Larry's Firearm Collection Museum. I'm guessing many of you have already gone there and seen it for yourself, which is really cool. But go back, because I'm sure there's something you missed. There is so much to look at when you're there. You could go just for that reason. But while you're there, you're going to end up buying something because the deals are great. You can also put jewelry on layaway, and they have financing options as well. Go to Larry's Pistol and Pawn today. And when you do, let them know Yaffee was the one who sent you. So joining me next is Stefan Padfield. He's got a piece at the Daily Signal, The Value and Virtues of Free Enterprise. So we'll talk about that and more coming up next on the Yaffee program. Stay with us.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
Start your day with the morning jolt of Drake C. Toll.
See, now it's on demand. My podcast is kind of a radio thing, I think, but also it's a bit of a TV show, and it's about whatever I want it to be. It's listening live as it happened, when it happened, with the instant reaction.
Your home for talking sports.
We go back. The Drake Toll Show, Westwood One Sports Network. And there it will be, on demand, on your radio. Anywhere in the country, I'll see you there.
Westwood One Sports Talk, your home for Drake C. Toll. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
We're back on the Yaffee program. This is News Talk 770 AM 92.5 FM WVNN. We're making the argument to believe in America again. Not just make America great again, but believe in America again. We're going to talk more about that. Joining me on the show right now is Stefan Padfield. He is with the Heritage Foundation. He has a column at the Daily Signal. It says the value and virtues of free enterprise. So, Stefan, joining us right now. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and I like how you started your piece here. You said socialism is on the rise and capitalism is on its back foot. The implications span all parts of our society, but certainly include corporate governance. As is often the case, the corporate governance issue boils down to who makes decisions and to what end those decisions are and should be aimed. So talk about this a little bit. What made you decide to write this piece right now?
Sure. The main prompt at this particular time was there's a lot of debate really all over the place about the current state of capitalism, asking why we have so many, especially young people, willing to listen to the siren song of socialism and communism. And one of the places, and this is getting a little bit into the weeds, but one of the places where this really comes up in my work is distinguishing the promotion of capitalism while still talking about virtue and value, but not going all the way to things like stakeholder capitalism and ESG and DEI, right? So those of us, I work for the Free Enterprise Initiative at the Heritage Foundation. We engage with corporations. We certainly focus on shareholder value. We think that that's a great proxy for creating value broadly. But we also talk about values generally, right? Can a child be born in the wrong body? Should you be forcing women to share bathrooms with men? On and on and on. So there's inevitably discussion of values, and then one of the pushbacks we get is, are you just right-leaning ESG? And I think there are really sound reasons to differentiate what we're doing when we engage from what the leftists do. And that then comes back full circle to defending free market capitalism more broadly.
Yeah, and I was talking about this earlier, but I think you're right on the money. One of the issues I've had is we're fighting against the left. With Democratic Socialists, we fight against them, but Republicans seem to do a terrible job at saying what they're for. They're reluctant to just really promote free markets and capitalism. Then, of course, you have some on the very extreme right that basically are promoting their own form of economic fascism, right? And that's been kind of one of the problems.
Yeah, it's an interesting time for many reasons, but one is we are seeing all these fissures both on the left and the right, and I think it's almost really a sense that we've been lulled into a little bit of a false confidence, if you will, about how unified the right, the conservative movement is, when in fact there are these very real divisions, between the libertarians and the social conservatives, and now you've got people that are, post-liberal, more interested in using government power more aggressively and where the line drawing is, and then of course, you get the words thrown around like fascism, and so these are all very important debates that we have to take very seriously, and I do think, again, coming back to just a solid defense of free market capitalism, which includes the benefits to society that flow from that, and conversations about that. And then, as you say, being able to point to specific positive agendas or outcomes or actions that we believe in, right? Whether that be, when it comes to energy affordability, when it comes to prosperity, national security, borders, immigration, all of these things, we have to have positive points, as you say, in addition to just fighting back against the left.
So let's go over some of those positive points. I see in your article, you say one of the reasons that free market capitalism has been so successful is it's the best way to eliminate poverty. Because a lot of times the left will act like they need socialism to eliminate poverty, but actually free markets are a much better way to do that.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's really important to point out is how the rhetoric on the left has shifted from poverty to inequality, right? It's not to say that there aren't poor people and that poverty is not an issue anymore, but it has gotten to the point where we really are on the cusp of eliminating poverty, and capitalism deserves the vast bulk of credit for that. And so the left has basically pivoted away from arguing about, we have so much poverty, to, well, look at the inequality, right? We need to basically put everybody on the same outcome path. And so that rhetorical shift alone, I think, tells you a lot about how successful capitalism has been in combating poverty. And when you get into the underlying premises, it just makes so much sense, right? Capitalism, free market capitalism, permits people naturally to engage with one another in win-win arrangements that make both parties better off. And as I put in the piece, the capitalist entrepreneur, business owner, corporate decision maker, they want people to do well because they want people to want to do business with them. This idea that somehow capitalists just abuse everyone and everything on their way to profit just doesn't stand up. Yes, there are the occasional outliers, but for the most part, the way you succeed in business is by giving people what they want and being a good actor that people want to do business with.
Yeah, it always cracks me up, too, because it's like, are we going to pretend that in socialism, the people in power and control are just doing it all of altruism? That's not the case either. A lot of times they're even more greedy. They want more power for themselves, right?
Absolutely. I think that's so spot on. And this is really a part of the dance. The back and forth is, one, pointing out the positives of capitalism and rejecting some of the false characterizations, but then also just pointing to the history of communism and socialism, right? I mean, the worst regimes, communism as an ideology and in practice has killed more people than any other ideology. I think it's, by some counts, 100 million dead can be attributed to that, when you talk about Stalin's regime and Mao's regime and Pol Pot, and just go on down the line. And again, if you take the time to think about what their proposition is, it is so unnatural what they are proposing that everybody should have equal outcomes, which is just completely contrary to what we understand in terms of individual free will and choice and so on, that everybody should have the same outcome, that you have to force people, right? Forcibly get them to go along. The fact that you want nothing to do with religion, you don't want people having, the local community to have any decision making. It's all top down. You just go on and on. It requires this sort of totalitarian tyranny to ultimately advance its agenda, regardless of the fact that when it first presents itself, it's anything but that, right? It's all about the people doing better and caring for one another, and you hear this with the young people when you ask them, why are you, so interested and open to socialism? It's because, we all just get along and celebrate with each other, and it's just the darkness that is behind that and underneath that is they're completely oblivious to that.
Speaking with Stefan Padfield, he's got a column at the Daily Signal. It says the value and virtues of free enterprise. One thing I've talked about before as well, and I think this is, you talk about the virtues of free enterprise. One reason why, to me, it's virtuous is private property rights are virtuous. I mean, to me, it's almost impossible to really have freedom in a society if you can't have private property. The Democratic Socialists will say, well, we're all about democracy. And I'll usually counter, that's fine, but democracy alone is not what makes someone free. There's also individual rights and individual liberty, and private property is the core of that, and it's also the core of capitalism, correct?
Absolutely. And I think this is so critical because, when we talk about on the right defending our founding, defending our Republican nature, right? I mean, because if you put everything to a vote, then what you get is you get the mob of the majority, right? They just will take everything from the rich and just essentially steal it, and you'll have mob tyranny. And our founders understood that. They set up a Republican system with rights against government imposition. And so, yeah, the idea that everything is great if we just let everybody vote on everything, that's just been proven wrong over and over again, and it doesn't take long to think about it. But the fundamental connection of all of that, the things that we care about, the founding, what we fought for in the revolution, on through even the Civil War and beyond, the fact that this idea of fundamental private property, the right of a person to take the fruits of their labor, to earn it, to have the incentives that come with that, to have it be defended and defend it themselves, if you take that away, what that does to incentives and the sorts of people that it ends up bringing to the top, in a system where private property is not defended, it doesn't take long to realize it's basically all the thieves and the tyrants and all the people you don't want in power. The defense of private property, as you say, is absolutely fundamental and critical. And when you understand that, then capitalism again, free market capitalism, becomes the best system, or if you like, Churchill's view, the worst system except for all the others that have been tried, right? Because it is so fundamentally tied to private actors dealing in their private property in free market exchanges.
So I got to ask before I let you go, did you participate at all in the great burrito debate that was going on online? Did you see this at all about $20 burritos? I got a $15 burrito yesterday, and that was a good burrito. But go ahead. What do you think about them complaining about $20 burritos?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, again, that has taken such center stage, but I think there is something fundamental there that is really worth taking seriously, which is to what extent that we are trying to win hearts and minds. We see all these young people in particular that are so enamored with socialism, and we want to engage them, and we want them to see the truth. Do we just dismiss their concerns about, for example, the $20 burrito? Or do we acknowledge that, yes, things are more expensive? Yes, it's frustrating when, you used to be able to go to Chipotle or whatever, and now you're paying 50% more, right? I think the view that it does not serve us well to just completely dismiss that out of hand is better, right? That doesn't mean that we don't point out how well off most of the people that are complaining in fact are, and if they went to the countries that they think are better, they would absolutely hate it and come right back, and all the people streaming into our country prove that. But still, to acknowledge some of the concerns around the rising price of things is I think, worthwhile.
Stefan Padfield, he's with the Heritage Foundation. You can read his piece at the Daily Signal. Go to dailysignal.com. The value and virtues of free enterprise. Stefan, really appreciate you coming on the show. I hope to talk to you again in the future.
Yeah, that would be great. Would really appreciate it. Thanks so much for the conversation.
All right, there you go. If you want to react to any of that conversation, you can. We have the Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866, 866-494-WVNN. Right now, I got to tell you about my good friends at the Huntsville Men's Clinic. Celebrating their 5-year anniversary, they're part of a team that's treated Alabama men for things like ED and low T for almost 15 years. And something's changed this past year. New options. They have taken care to another level, and they want you to come see what's new. Yes, the pills don't necessarily work for everyone. Even when they do, a lot of guys deal with the headache, the flushed face, the side effects nobody loves. If the pills haven't worked or never really did, that's exactly what the Huntsville Men's Clinic is built for. So go today, make an appointment, give them a call, 256-368-0333, or go to the website, huntsvillemensclinic.com. $99 for that testosterone and PSA test. You get your numbers in about an hour. I got my testosterone checked there. It was super simple. I mean, you got it, like I said, during the appointment before you leave. HuntsvilleMen'sClinic.com. When you go, let them know you heard about it from Yaffee. We'll be back in a moment on the Yaffee program.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
We're back here on the Yaffee program. News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. I forgot to mention earlier, I did get a burrito yesterday. It wasn't $20. It was $15, which is kind of a lot. Now, Walker, if I told you I got a $15 burrito, where would you think that I got it, if you had to guess?
I would assume a sit-down Mexican restaurant.
No, I mean, close. It was Chipotle.
Oh,
It was
okay.
Chipotle. Do you like Chipotle at all?
I do. I actually used to work there.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you did. Okay. Yeah, how long ago was that?
That was 2021.
Okay, so I'm sure prices have gone up since then.
Yeah, probably.
But okay, so you know what it was like to wrap my burrito. My burrito that I get's usually pretty hard to wrap. The reason it's $15 is that this is what I'll get. You know, I'll get a burrito. I like a burrito. I'm not a fan of the bowls. For some reason, biting into a big burrito is better for me. But I'll get burrito, white rice, black beans, steak. So the steak's a little bit more expensive. So that starts it. I'll get the peppers and onions too on it. Then I'll get hot salsa. Then I'll get cheese, sour cream, guacamole, which is also why it was more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'll put lettuce on it. I didn't put lettuce on it yesterday. So that's what. So I guess it's usually, if you get, say, a chicken burrito or a beef one, it's usually about $10. But since I got steak, it was like $1 more. And then I got guacamole, which was it's like $2.75 now. And then you add tax, it's about $15. Now, I didn't get it DoorDashed. Then it would have been $20. But did you have to wrap burritos like that? Pretty big?
Oh yeah. And there was one time a guy even clapped after I was able to wrap his burrito.
What, do you get like extra steak or something?
I think it was just like really saucy. And
Okay. I didn't get queso. I don't hate queso. I don't know. I like it with chips, but when I put queso on it before, I didn't really taste it. It just tasted like, I don't know. I didn't notice it. But guacamole, I will not. If they don't have guacamole, I walk out. I'm like, oh, I can't get a Chipotle burrito without guacamole. What is this?
I don't get why it's almost $3 just to add guacamole.
Yeah, I know they like freshly make it.
Yes.
But yeah, that's really what made it more expensive. So, but I was able to get it, and it still wasn't $20, as some people are saying. So I do want to talk real quick about the burrito thing, because I was thinking about this, why this debate over a $20 burrito frustrated me. And for those that don't know, it really started. So Matt Walsh is a conservative commentator. He was on X. He was complaining about grocery prices. Then a guy with TPUSA posted that he had asked one of his younger employees about affordability, and that younger employee said, I just think a burrito shouldn't cost $20. And this started a whole debate about fast food. Matt Walsh started to go into Subway subs, why that costs more. And I realized that the reason why this debate frustrated me is because it's one of those things where there's a grain of truth to it, but it was stretched out to its outermost limit. So there's a grain of truth to what they're saying, and that is prices have gone up. Grocery prices, food prices have gone up, and especially fast food prices have gone up. So that's sort of the point there, that we can all kind of tell that prices on these things have gone up, and that really affects especially people right out of college. They're starting from the bottom. They really notice that. And you just notice it because we remember it wasn't that long ago when it was cheaper. But the reason why it frustrates me is you'll take an issue like that, and then you'll have a Matt Walsh or somebody say, it's a crisis. It's insane. He said prices are insane. This is an affordability crisis. And that's where I get a little frustrated, because we can point out a problem without making it an absolute crisis. And we can also not exaggerate, because it was just exaggerated. Or yes, the cost of food has gone up, but no, a typical burrito does not cost $20. And that's where the back and forth really comes from, because and this is like, it's like this with so many of our debates. It really is. There could be a grain. RFK Jr., I talk about him. There's a grain of truth to a lot of what he says, even when it comes to vaccines, probably. But it ends up being stretched out so much to where you say it's a crisis, then people say we shouldn't get any vaccines, and then all of a sudden you have the lie spread that vaccines cause autism, when there's really not evidence for that. So it's like that's why some of these debates really frustrate me. And frankly, social media, it really just exacerbates that problem, that debate. And honestly, we're going to talk more about another debate that's kind of like that. So in the next segment, I do want to get into this issue of flock cameras because we have the back and forth of that. Now, 2 weeks ago, I didn't even know what it was. Somebody said that to me. I was like, what are you talking about? Does it keep track of birds or something? What is a flock camera? No, that's the brand. But you have had a strong backlash among even conservatives in Alabama to this. And I'm thinking, okay, it seems to be another one of those issues where there's a grain of truth to what they're saying, but it becomes stretched out so much that even having one present somewhere is a crisis, and maybe we need to tear them down because this is Big Brother. And I'm like, oh, okay, what are we doing here? But that's why you have me. I'm your voice of reason. So we'll talk more about that next here on the Yaffee program. Stay with us.
The Yaffee program.
Mic Drop, hosted by former Navy SEAL Mike Ridlin.
How would you characterize your prowess?
I'd say my style is that I just kind of outwork everybody till I get there.
Because I'm not a quitter.
It's just you. And that's yourself. Whereas everything else is team-oriented.
The motivation, it was a sort of anger at myself for being weak. That ends up being the driving factor. That anger, that pride, that ego, I think it's a muscle. It gets stronger. When you take that voice seriously, you start to change your life.
Mic Drop. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
The Yaffee program on WVNN.
So our friends at Brightside Media, who I partner with at YellowHammerNews.com, Allison Sinclair, Amy Beth Schaefer, Justin Pott, JP, used to be on here. They have an op-ed at YellowHammerNews.com. It says, flock cameras and the slow surrender of American liberty. So they believe that we are, well, this is what they put. They said, unfortunately, in 2026, it seems that is exactly what we have done. It is alarming to watch how many Americans willingly, almost gleefully, cede pieces of their freedom and privacy to federal and local governments. In the name of the greater good, many have accepted countless intrusions into their personal lives. Facial recognition at airports, overly personal questions at the doctor's office, and the unchecked collection and sale of their online data. So they're saying this is a graduate thing. It says law enforcement agencies and private communities use the technology to identify vehicles potentially connected to crimes. In practical terms, when a vehicle passes a flock camera, its license plate is scanned by artificial intelligence and stored into a searchable database accessible to law enforcement. Flock Safety and potentially other organization supporters argue that these systems have helped solve crimes, locate missing people, and assist law enforcement investigations. But they say, however, there are also troubling examples of how these systems can be misused. In Alabama, both the Moody and Springville police departments reported officer terminations related to unauthorized access and use of flock footage. Officers allegedly used the system to track women across the state for personal reasons. So the debate over flock cameras continues. And we're going to go over both sides of this. And I'll play some cuts as well, kind of getting into this, because I have to admit, I seem to be somewhere in the middle on this one. I don't think flock cameras are inherently bad things, but they can be abused, and there probably should be checks against that abuse. But maybe you disagree. You can tell me. I'm really curious your take on this, as we've talked about it before, but the debate keeps growing. Here on the Yaffee program, News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. As you know, this is the show where you can count on the latest news, the important guests, and the best analysis, all for your morning commute. And if you miss any of the show live, the podcast will be up on the website at WVNN.com. So one person who recently expressed concern about flock cameras is who is now the Republican nominee for Alabama's 2nd Congressional District, Rhett Marcus. And he was actually on with Right Side Media recently, and I want to play that cut, what he said about flock cameras. So, Walker, go ahead and play the Rhett Marcus cut for me.
Well, I believe in the Fourth Amendment, the right to privacy, and flock cameras do concern me. It's collecting data that never goes away. I understand that we need to make sure that we protect the citizens of this country from, under the Biden administration, people came across unvetted, 10, 20 million people, who knows how many. There was some bad people that came across the border, and we need to protect the citizens of this country. So I get the law enforcement side of that, but I also think that we have to protect the people's right to privacy under the Fourth Amendment.
So he's saying, we have to protect the people's right to privacy. Now, I want people to understand the Fourth Amendment protects you from unreasonable searches and seizures. It's sort of an implied right to privacy, but it is not expressly said you have a right to privacy. It's kind of important to point that out just for perspective here. I'm not saying it doesn't apply here to flock cameras. I'm just trying to point that out. Now, he's not the only one. State Representative Ernie Yarbrough came out against them. State Auditor Andrew Sorrell has come out against them. Those are Alabama examples. We also have examples in Tennessee. So Glenn Jacobs is the Knox County mayor, formerly Kane of the WWE. I have a feeling he's going to be Tennessee's next U.S. senator because Marsha Blackburn's going to be the governor, then appoint Glenn Jacobs. But he went on Fox recently and talked about why he's against them, wants a moratorium on some of them. Go on to play Glenn Jacobs' cut for me.
A few weeks ago, where a family was pulled over. Again, police got out of their cars because they think it's a very dangerous situation. They thought it was a stolen car. It was not. It was an error with the flock cameras. Those are not isolated incidents. Those may be more dramatic than what we've seen otherwise, but this system is notoriously erroneous. There's a city in California, 71% of the hits were the wrong license plate. So we're talking about something that is not only not safe, it's unconstitutional.
All right, so he says it's unsafe and unconstitutional. Now, let me go to the other side of this. Garrett Langley is the CEO of the company Flock that makes these cameras. They're not the only company, but that seems to be the prominent one. So he went on Fox News and defended the use of these cameras. Go on and play the Garrett Langley cut 1 for me, Walker.
Really compounding. Last year alone, we helped solve more than 1 million crimes, and that's from national stories like the Brown shooter to everyday stolen cars. And you look at last month, over 1,000 missing people detected and over 22,000 stolen cars. So it's every day you hear stories of just incredible results.
All right, so let me give you an example. He said there's incredible results. And let me give you an example one. In Tennessee, you just heard Glenn Jacobs say we don't really need it in Tennessee. But here's a story. It says East Tennessee man wanted on child rape charge was arrested in New Jersey with the help of a flock camera. So that's just an example. A Jefferson County Sheriff's Office says that he entered into the wanted person system on Friday, and because of the flock safety camera, later detected the vehicle in New Jersey. So this system was able to track him. So that's an example of keeping us safe, catching a bad guy, but it also means they were able to track him across a different state. But Garrett Langley continues his defense. Go on and play cut 2 of Garrett for me.
Yeah, well, look, for every 1 million alerts we send as a business, roughly 8 of those are flagged as inaccurate. What the mayor is referring to is the fact that the national database, the NCIC, often has bad information, and that's something that we'd love to fix. Now, on his point of unconstitutionality, over 40 courts have continued to define ALPR cameras as incredibly constitutional. And I think when you talk to victims, it's loud and clear. Everyone wants the same thing, which is to be safe.
All right, and I know people are going to respond, and they're immediately going to say, we can't compromise all of our liberty in the name of safety. And there is some truth to that. It can be a slippery slope. I mean, all the kinds of things that you could ban or your individual rights that could be taken away for quote-unquote safety. I understand that. Now, I mean, he's asked straight up here, though, about some of the backlash. Going to play cut 3 of Garrett for me.
Is this Big Brother?
No, I mean, look, any level of abuse is simply unacceptable. And sadly, police abuse has existed far beyond and far before Flock. We're the first ones to shine a light on it. We don't sell data. We don't own the data. Every one of our customers, whether it's a business or a community or a city, owns their data. They choose how long it's stored. They choose who it's shared with as well. So it's not Big Brother. What we're focused on is protecting people. Today, it's not fair, it's not right that based on what zip code you live in determines your safety level. We all get clean water, we all get the same electricity, but for some reason we've chosen not to provide the same level of safety.
All right, so that's his point of view, that it adds an extra level of safety. Now, Ernie Yarbrough, I mentioned earlier, state representative, he responded to some of those claims. And he said, look, if we really care about fighting against crime, we had low crime rates before, years ago, without flock cameras. But the reason we did is because we were tough on crime. We put criminals in jail and stuff like that. So what do you think? You can tell me on the Yaffee text line here. I'll tell you what I think real quick. And I know I mentioned some of this before. It would be one thing if these cameras were like, one, monitoring what you're saying in your car, looking in your neighborhood or something. But these cameras are mostly put up, at least from what I understand, they're mostly put up on public intersections in very public areas. Or if they're put up by a private business, they kind of work as a security camera for that private business. So you have it outside in Home Depot or something. It's basically working as a security camera. And I understand our right to so-called privacy or unreasonable searches and seizures. But I also wonder, the reason why I think it holds up in court is because you don't really have that expectation of privacy when you're in a car in a very public intersection on the road. Like, if it's not a flock camera, it could just be a generic security camera or a generic traffic camera. A Google Earth camera, I don't know. A generic CCTV. So we're saying this is different, not really because it's spying on you in some kind of personal space, but they're saying it's different because it keeps the data, and that data can be accessed later, and it uses artificial intelligence to track certain people. And that's where we say it's an invasion. And really what we're hearing is a slippery slope argument, that it could lead to something. And the best example I've heard, and probably the most compelling example, is that during COVID, they were arresting people for being outside without a mask. And eventually they could use flock cameras in the future to do that under the next pandemic or something. So why have that system? But even with the flock camera, the Fourth Amendment still applies. You can't just go arrest someone. If you have data in a flock camera, you can't just arrest them for nothing. You still have to have a warrant to go get that person because the Fourth Amendment still applies. So to me, I just wonder if there's a grain of truth where we're all kind of worried about too much government abusing their power, and some government officials, police officers, have abused their power here. But wouldn't it be a better answer to have a check on the power? So make it harder for them to access it in certain ways. And honestly, an officer can abuse, if they don't have access to a flock camera, there are other ways they can abuse their authority. We give every officer a gun. Should we take away that officer's gun because, quote unquote, they might abuse it? That doesn't really make any sense. We take away an officer's police siren because they might use it to speed or something. There are always chances that an officer can abuse something. So what you do is, one, prosecute the officers that do abuse it very, very heavily, strong penalties, law and order. But two, make sure not everyone has access to the system. You have checks without just completely destroying something that has worked in keeping people safe. So as I mentioned, it's kind of one area where I'm a little bit of a middle ground, but as I also said, Ernie Yarbrough, he's going to come on the show tomorrow. Maybe he can convince me otherwise. Maybe you can. You can tell me. We have our Yaffee text line here, 866-494-9866, 866-494-WVNN. We have some people that are pro and against already weighing in on the Yaffee text line. Right now, I can tell you a group you're going to be very, very pro for. That's VIP Care. If you're 65 years or older, maybe you have a family member, a good friend, they're trying to get decent medical care, and it can be hard to do to find exactly what you need sometimes. Well, let me tell you where you can find it all in one place, and that's with my good friends at GetVIPCare.com. They can help you find a local clinic. They're community-based. They have coordinated care, so you get pharmacists, specialists, screenings all done in one place. Their providers have access to more information and better insight, so you get better results. Convenient 24/7 support if you need something. And so many people have used it, and they have many locations right here in Huntsville and across Alabama. So make an appointment today. Really can change your life. They have Medicare experts as well, so because you have to deal with all that. GetVIPCare.com. GetVIPCare.com. Primary care with a heart for seniors. Contact them today. When you do, let them know you heard about it from Yaffee. Back in a moment here on the Yaffee program.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
Welcome back to the Yaffee program. We're always here on News Talk 770 AM 92.5 FM WVNN. Making radio great again. Believing in America again. That's what we do here on the show. Don't forget to like the Yaffee Facebook page. Follow me on X at Yaffee or Instagram at Yaffee Live. And yes, to spell it Yaffee. So we're asking what you guys think about flock cameras again. Still a big issue. Kind of came out of nowhere, but it is. One person said, I'm all about security and privacy. However, I am 100% for flock cameras leading to arrests of criminals as long as there are safeguards in place. So, okay, it seems like a pretty reasonable response. Another person said, hey, Yaffee, the world seems to be getting more and more dangerous. I'll take the flock cameras any day. Okay, so 2 people pro flock camera there. One person said this, though. Said, mark my words. Eventually, they're going to use these cameras to give you speeding tickets. And keep in mind that speeding is a criminal act by definition. It's a loophole that they will use. They already have these kinds of setups in Ireland, and if you do 1 kilometer over the speed limit, get a ticket in the mail. Cameras are everywhere. So they plan to use them that I have a problem with. And everybody on this radio station has never been dead on the speed limit 100% of the time in their life. Yeah, I would definitely have a problem with them using it for speeding tickets. It's my understanding that most cops will not even, do it if you're even 5 miles over, mostly because speedometers are not 100% accurate. So your speedometer could say something different than the radar, and they pull you over for 1 mile over, but it's true. Basically the answer there is eventually the system will be in place and they'll want to abuse it in the future for whatever reason. And I've had an issue with the red light cameras too. I understand that can save lives, but the problem is they're ticketing people for not doing a full stop on a right turn or something. That's when it's like, okay, this is no longer about safety. It's about getting money. So, yeah, I understand that. I understand that concern. Now, one thing I got to talk about real quick here, we haven't had time to yet, but I do want to update you on the latest in Iran. According to CBS News, there have been more strikes, even though Trump says. So Trump on Truth Social claimed the U.S. has total control over the Strait of Hormuz. Says the USA has total control over the Strait of Hormuz. I think we will keep it. Our naval blockade is being called by everyone a wall of steel, and there's nothing Iran can do about it. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. Their remaining soldiers are unpaid. The IRGC is decimated and fleeing, and their leadership is uncertain. At best, they have no money. Their country is shot. He said, praise be to Allah. Jeez, oh my gosh. On that note, though, I want to play this guy. I know I've been playing him a lot, but I think he's been a good voice of reason on a lot of this. So General Jack Keane, retired general, now Fox News contributor, he had kind of a warning for the president and people on the latest when it comes to the war in Iran. So go on and play the Jack Keane cut, Walker.
I think at times we underestimate where the Iranians really are in terms of where their head is. And we have a tendency to look at them in terms of what is the impact of the blockade doing to the economy? How much money are they losing every single day, every single month? Where is their currency in terms of its value? What's their inflation rate? These are all norms that we look at ourselves, and we look at them and say, my, this is absolutely devastating. to them. At some point, they're going to fold their hand. But you got to understand where this regime is really coming from, the people who are running it. They have an ideology that they're holding to. They absolutely believe right now that they have the upper hand. I know there's people that don't want to admit that, but that's where the Iranians are. I'm not saying that's where they are. I don't believe it myself. But it's irrelevant. They believe it. They believe the Straits of Hormuz is a strategic asset, and they are not going to bargain that away. Even if they gave in to the concessions we want them to make over the Straits, we already have evidence that they won't comply with it because 2 presidents signed the deal, and days later the Iranians didn't comply with it. So where they are, they will not give up the Straits of Hormuz unless we take it back by force. No amount of economic pressure on them, I think, will bend them to do that.
I tend to agree with them. Right now, it seems to be an economic war. We think economic pressure will be enough. Maybe that will bend them, and then we can take the Strait, get rid of their leverage. One, everything he said is true. They're radicals. But two, I really do think they're being propped up by Russia and China, which helps the regime kind of survive, even though in usual circumstances it would crumble within itself. Now, looking at oil prices, kind of on a note on this, according to CBS News, says oil prices were essentially flat Wednesday after rising sharply this week, with the Strait of Hormuz effectively shut down as fighting in Iran continues. The price of a barrel of Brent crude, the international standard, rose 0.19% to $89.08 early Wednesday. Now, the U.S. benchmark crude oil ticked up 0.4% to about $83 a barrel. U.S. gasoline prices also edged 2 cents higher overnight to a national average of about $4.04 per gallon. That's according to Motor Club AAA. That's 16 cents higher than at this point last month. President Trump said he would seek compensation from Iran for conflict after Tehran said it would seek payments from the U.S. before it opens the Strait. And Trump's like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. So there you go. Now, the number of vessels tracked transitioning the Strait of Hormuz fell to 1 week low of 8. That's according to data reported by Reuters. About 130 ships a day passed through the vital waterway before the war started on February 28th. So it went from 130 to 8, which is not good. I still think we should, if we're going to take back the Strait, we're going to have to do it by force. But they seem to think economic pressure will be enough. Well, we'll just have to see. Coming up next, got What's Trending on the show with the Yaffee program Rewind as well. Later on, you are listening to the Yaffee program. Back in just a moment.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
Mic Drop, hosted by former Navy SEAL Mike Ridland.
What is your take? Was it what you expected?
Oh, it was the best thing ever.
It was something I always wanted to do.
If you show me a clear goal, I'm like, okay, I can do that. Master Chief, he's like, you realize there's about 1% chance of you making it through. 1%? That's all I need, Master Chief.
My platoon went home early, and I just went up to my chief, and I was like, I'm not going home.
Turns out I'm staying.
That's when we go to war. Yeah. I was like, okay, I could get used to this.
Mic Drop. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
I am back here on Newstalk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. Glad you have joined the show today. You can also listen online at WVNN.com or the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn Radio app, your Alexa, Google, Apple smart devices, or, of course, the WVNN app as well. Walker is here, so let's get right to it. We have What's Trending with Walker.
Keeping you up to date with all that's trending in your world.
Oh, they have the internet on computers now.
You guys know how to post videos to Facebook?
It's What's Trending.
Sponsored by Coleman Furniture Market, because they always have the latest trending in furniture and always the best deals. Right now they have their big Labor Day sale going on, so if you need some new living room furniture, maybe a new mattress, maybe new bedroom furniture, I got my living room furniture and my bedroom furniture from Coleman Furniture Market, and I did it for a reason. The in-house design team helped us out. The selection there is bigger than most places. If you see it in their showroom, you can take it home or have it delivered. And they have same as cash. They have 0% financing options for those who qualify as well. Go to ColemanFurnitureMarket.com to see more and to see some of the latest inventory as they get in new stuff all the time. Go to the Facebook page, see some of the pictures, or on Instagram as well. Coleman Furniture Market, located in the heart of Coleman, Alabama. Go today, and when you do, let them know you heard about it from Yaffee. All right, Walker, what's number 5 today?
Number 5 today, over time, after receiving handwritten letters and online requests, Goldfish has now come out with a gluten-free option of their crackers.
Oh, you know, I'm almost surprised they didn't do that earlier because that's become such a big thing. But
yeah, I'm surprised as well. But families had said that they haven't always been able to enjoy them together, and that really made them want to give them something to have.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's another potential consumer that they were missing.
Yep.
And people like I love goldfish. My daughter loves goldfish. Do you ever eat goldfish?
I ate them a lot in high school.
It's one of those things you don't really think about it as much, but when you get it, you're like, oh, this is good. And then you end up eating the whole bag or
right.
something, Definitely one of those things. But that's good. Gluten-free option. I'm like you said, I'm surprised they didn't come up with that sooner. All right, what's number 4?
Number 4 today, a brand called Revolve is going viral after they posted a $450 Paris, Georgia top that resembles a trash bag.
I was about to say, you sent me the picture. I thought it was just a trash bag.
Apparently not.
Oh, okay.
And though it is currently marked down to 153, there's also a skirt that has the same look that people are calling hefty chic.
Oh my gosh. All right, you going to get one, Walker?
No.
It's marketed to you, no?
No. I could easily cut up a trash bag at home and get the same look.
I mean, when you sent this to me, I just figured that's what it was. It was a trash bag. I didn't realize that it just looks like that. That's pretty crazy.
It's supposed to be their signature liquid fabrication. I don't think it looks like liquid, in my opinion.
No, I mean it looks like a trash bag. That's what it is. I don't understand. All right, what's number 3?
Number 3 today. Chick-fil-A's fall menu will be coming out soon, and they have a chicken and waffle sandwich, as well as s'mores milkshakes and a s'mores frosted coffee.
I mean, all that sounds good, actually. For a fall menu, I figured you were just going to say pumpkin spice something.
Right.
But no, these are actually good things.
Yes, they're actually changing it up. It will be released on August 24th as part of its 80-year nostalgia celebration.
Yeah, I got a s'mores. Where did I get a s'mores cold brew? Maybe it was Scooters. It was pretty good. So maybe we'll see if their coffee's good.
Yeah, and Scooters actually also has a chicken waffle sandwich that I like.
That's right, they do. Yeah.
Chick-fil-A's will have, of course, chicken waffles, but also applewood smoked bacon and honey butter.
Well, I mean, it sounds good. I would get this fall meal.
Me too.
And I'm usually not a big fan of the pumpkin spice stuff, so I really thought that's where this was going, and I was pleasantly surprised. All right, what's number 2?
Number 2 today, a location in the UK that is known as Dobby's fictional grave from Harry Potter.
Oh, I saw this story. Ridiculous. This is going to be my hated 8 one day, probably. But
okay. A multi-million-pound power line that is being built between the UK and Ireland have had to change course after Harry Potter fans have revolted against the route. because the location of Dobby's grave would be destroyed, even though it's fictional.
I was about to say, we know like the actual location of the grave is in a book, and there's nothing really there, right? Did they forget? I mean, what is happening here?
Right. Like, it's just a big pile of stones right now.
Unbelievable.
And there's a sign that says, "Here lies Dobby, a free elf." And it's
did they put a sign there for real?
There is a sign there.
Oh my gosh.
Is on the freshwater West Beach in Wales, where the scene was filmed.
And they were just going to put a power line there, and it's like, no.
And it's not even
desecrate the grave.
A big sign. It's just another stone, but larger than the others.
It's so stupid. Oh, man. People take the... I just want to tell all these people to grow up. That's literally I'm going to sound like an old curmudgeon. I'm going to be like, hey, grow up, everyone. We need the power line. What are we doing here? All right, what's number 2?
This is number 1.
Number 1.
You keep doing that lately.
I know. I don't know why. I just wanted to keep extending it. I have no idea.
The Lakers have been sold to Josh Kushner and ex-Disney executive Bob Iger.
Really?
Yes, for a historic valuation of $12.5 billion.
You know, I always think about, and I know you get more details on the actual sale. I always think about how does this work with like the banks? Like, literally you're sitting in an office and it's like, okay, transfer. Do you write a $12 billion check? Do you, how does that even work?
Yeah, it's like, do they have to split it up into payments?
Yeah, like I'm sure someone much smarter than me understands it. I guess it's some kind of wire transfer, but it's just kind of funny to think, okay, I'm going to buy this. Here's $12 billion.
Yeah, it is the highest figure for an American sports team ever.
I mean, it makes sense being the Lakers,
mm-hmm.
But wow. Did Bob Iger say why he wants it or anything?
He said, as lifelong NBA fans, we are deeply honored for the opportunity to become the stewards of the Los Angeles Lakers, one of the most iconic sport franchises in the world. We have immense respect for the leadership and vision of Jerry and Jeannie Buss.
Okay, I guess the old owners.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what other teams would cost somewhere around there. And I'm not just talking NBA, just sports in general. I'd assume maybe the Yankees would be more.
Probably.
Like, if you had to think of a team that maybe would cost more, maybe the Yankees. I keep thinking of baseball teams, like the Chicago Cubs, the Boston Red Sox, maybe.
Oh, yeah, probably the Sox for sure.
The only other NBA team I could think of, maybe the Boston Celtics. I'm not sure that even that would cost that much. In terms of the NFL, maybe the Dallas Cowboys or the Pittsburgh Steelers. But even that, I don't know.
Yeah, I Googled the Dallas Cowboys, and this says that their valuation is $15.5 billion.
Okay, so that's even more.
But maybe they haven't been sold for that. It's just what they're valued for.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's owned by Jerry Jones, and he doesn't want to sell or anything like that. But I'm just trying to think of, okay, because the Lakers is a pretty iconic team, which is why it's being sold for so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, what other teams in other sports would be like that? And the Dallas Cowboys probably would be one of them.
According to Google, the top valued franchises are the Dallas Cowboys, Los Angeles Rams, Los Angeles Lakers, New York Giants, and Golden State Warriors.
Wow, the Warriors. I mean, the Warriors have been amazing recently, but I'm kind of surprised they're that high in the list for some reason. But all right, there you go. Very interesting stuff. I will never have this issue. I'll never be able to buy a sports team, I don't think it's
I don't think so
ever
either.
going to happen in my life. But thank you, Walker. Appreciate it. We'll have the Yaffee program rewind here in just a moment on WVNN.
The Yaffee program.
Welcome back to the Yaffee program. Always here on News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. It's a revolution in common sense here on the show. Now, earlier we were talking about the issue of flock cameras. It's become a big issue across the country. But yes, here in Alabama, you have several local lawmakers who want to get rid of them. So one person weighed in and said, I think it should fall under unreasonable search statute, talking about the cameras. Unreasonable to track a person's activity if that person doesn't have reasonable suspicion committing a crime. I do think the public has a reasonable expectation of privacy as far as not being surveyed where they go, where they are, when they leave, whenever they are on the road. Just because they're in public doesn't mean you can't expect some privacy. Definitely Big Brother taking it too far. So just a reminder, the flock cameras, they only monitor, it really just reads the license plate and the type of car. So it monitors where your car is going, but it doesn't necessarily monitor everything you do as a person. I guess maybe the technology could get there in the future, but once again, this is a slippery slope argument where, you know, it's not really for that now, but the technology's there, so it could be monitored in the future, so to speak. So maybe you agree or disagree with that. Tomorrow on the show, we're going to speak with State Representative Ernie Yarbrough, who's been very much against them, and see if maybe he can convince me to be much more against them. Well, real quick, I know someone you're definitely not going to be against, my good friend, the Jay's Appliance Outlet. That's because their deals are amazing. They have delivery options as well, so you can get your appliance delivered fast and hassle-free. And 0% interest financing, flexible monthly payments designed for your budget. So if you need to upgrade your home appliances, discover top categories with unbeatable outlet savings. And they get new inventory in all the time, so you're going to get some great deals. And I keep telling you about their luxury kitchen collections on sale right now. Exclusive savings on Whirlpool, KitchenAid, and GE appliances. Whether you're talking about a premium refrigerator, ranges, and cooking solutions from trusted brands, I really do want you to discover exceptional quality, innovative design, and limited time savings through their collection. So go to Jay's Appliance Outlet today. They're located off 72 in Athens. You see the sign out there. They posted another big sign that just says up to 60% off new appliances because that's what they offer. But you can find out more at the website, jaysapplianceoutlet.com, or give them a call. You'll talk to a real person, maybe even Jay himself. If you dial pound 250, say the keywords Jay's Appliance Outlet. When you do, let them know you heard about it from Yaffee. All right, that time of the show, once again, we have the Yaffee program Rewind. Sorry, I had to hit the VCR there a little bit. You know, sometimes it just acts up. It's old technology. You just got to punch it and then it works again. But it is that time of the show, once again, where I remind you, if you missed any of it live, the podcast will be up on the website at WVNN.com or anywhere you subscribe, anywhere you listen, anywhere you get your podcasts. So at the beginning of the show today, we were talking about Woke 2.0. Yeah, the sequel to Woke 1. The reason why this has come up is AOC Ock is out there, and she said Woke 1 was crazy. Go and play the AOC cut for me, Walker.
She's moved away from it. And I have a local city councilman that has this saying Woke 1 was crazy.
Woke 1 was crazy. Okay, that's
and I think that what's important is that we have to assess what
was it. I mean, did the movement go too far with some of those positions? I mean, you briefly supported the idea of defunding the police.
Well, you know, I think that during this time and especially during COVID, there was a huge opening of the Overton window. We were shut down. There was some of the highest unemployment rates that we have seen because of those shutdowns. Yeah. And I think that the doors were really open in trying to entertain any and every policy that was going to get us to a better place. And I actually think that the discussions that were had in that time were quite fruitful. I think that when we talk about crime today, it's fundamentally different than the way that we talked about crime in bringing crime down, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that we all share in the goals of having as low a crime rate as possible. I think that, you know, during lockdown, of course, rhetoric in that time is not rhetoric that we would use today. And I'm grateful that these candidates have the opportunity to present who they are to their electorate and what they're campaigning on in this moment.
So Scott Jennings, who I say is the voice of reason of CNN, had a pretty good response to some of this. Go and play the Scott Jennings cut for me.
So I noted AOC's comment this weekend. Woke 1 was crazy. Let me introduce you to Woke 2, Electric Boogaloo. This is the craziest sequel in the history of politics. If you think what they were selling back in 2020, abolish police or defund the police, was crazy, now it's abolish police, abolish prisons, abolish border, abolish the U.S. Senate, which really means abolish the U.S. Constitution. And it gets even crazier. Abolish Thanksgiving, because fundamentally they hate what the United States of America stands for. You cannot have a conversation about affordability with voters when you're out there saying, this country really is rotten at its core and it needs to be ripped out root and branch, which is exactly what these democratic socialists are doing. You can make all the happy, smiley videos you want, but until you solve the crazy problem of all of these supposed hot takes, how do you ever break through to average voters who are just looking for something normal? And the Democrats are saying, best we can do, cancel Thanksgiving. What do you say?
That sounds a lot.
So we talked a lot about that at the beginning of the show. The podcast is up. We have the Alabama bullet points as well, the top stories from around the state, including election results, because you had that special primary election that happened yesterday. So we had that. We also spoke with Stefan Padfield, had a column on free markets at the Daily Signal, so check that out. I talked about me getting a $15 burrito yesterday. Still wasn't $20. It was good. It was at Chipotle. So we talked about that. We also talked about the debate over flock cameras, and you have state representative who's probably going to be our next congressman, well, in District 2 in Alabama, Rep. Marcus, if I can get his name right. I still hear it 4 different ways, but he has become kind of against these flock cameras, or he's concerned about it. So play the Rep. Marcus cut for me.
Well, I believe in the Fourth Amendment, the right to privacy, and flock cameras do concern me. It's collecting data that never goes away. I understand that we need to make sure that we protect the citizens of this country from, under the Biden administration, people came across unvetted, 10, 20 million people, who knows how many. There was some bad people that came across the border, and we need to protect the citizens of this country. So I get the law enforcement side of that, but I also think that we have to protect the people's right to privacy under the Fourth Amendment.
So we had that big debate. It continues on. We'll talk more about that tomorrow on the show, but the podcast is up. Then I gave you some of the latest details on Iran, and I played this cut from retired General Jack Keane on the Strait of Hormuz. Play Jack Keane.
I think at times we underestimate where the Iranians really are in terms of where their head is. And we have a tendency to look at them in terms of what is the impact of the blockade doing to the economy? How much money are they losing every single day, every single month? Where is their currency in terms of its value? What's their inflation rate? These are all norms that we look at ourselves, and we look at them and say, my, this is absolutely devastating to them. At some point, they're going to fold their hand. But you got to understand where this...
All right, stop right there. So he basically says they don't cave to economic pressure like we would. We're going to have to force it open through the military. So I think he's right. We had What's Trending earlier as well. If you missed the show, the podcast is up. Thanks to Walker for producing today. And I will be back tomorrow at the same time. See you then.
It's the Yaffee Program on WVNN.
Start your day with the morning jolt of Drake Toll.
Anywhere in the country.
Your home for talking sports.
The United States hockey team has 4 teeth left.
What is LeBron James' legacy?
Lionel Messi.
906 career goals is stupid.
All of it.
The Knicks. The Los Angeles Lakers. Aaron Rodgers. Georgia football players. The Dolphins. The Mets. As it happened, when it happened, we'll talk all of it.
Westwood One Sports Talk. Your home for Drake Toll. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.